got me to the things that I love. I live the rhythm of my soul. Got me to the things that I love. I live the rhythm of my soul. Got me to the things that I strove to love. I live the rhythm of my soul. I let it guide me straight to life. I let the rhythm of my soul, I let it guide me straight to love. I let the rhythm of my soul, I let it guide me straight to love. Soul, I let it guide me home to love. Hey, of my soul, I let it guide me straight to love. I let the rhythm of my soul straight to love. Hello, hello, hello. So I've been doing these loops on my loop station, which is one of the best gifts I've ever received because it's allowing me to basically instill mantra and vibration in ways that I am really looking forward to sharing. I'm always the first person to receive it and then to have it ricocheting in my environment to really feel the effects of it. And because I know this stuff works, the idea is to share it. So my name is Tash Mitch. I am the Business Energy Alchemist. I am here because I have been challenged to do a whole year worth of lives. And it's one of those things, when I got challenged, the answer was yes. But then I found myself getting really bashful about actually saying that and being held accountable to show up every single day for a year live in social media. But there's something that is ringing true about doing that. So I am going to open up from a sense of deep playfulness and see how we dance this into the world, right? So I'm a business alchemist. It's really interesting. I actually went onto somebody's page last week, and she had a really interesting name, and I didn't know how to pronounce her name, and I wanted to leave her a vocal message because we'd connected, but we'd actually not connected in person. And so I'd gone onto her Facebook and Instagram, and there were all of these videos on there. And I was like looking for a video where she actually introduced herself, and she didn't introduce herself. So there's always this assumption that everybody knows who you are, right? And this is one of the things that I actually speak about quite clearly in the Quantum Business Studio, that we have to keep reintroducing ourselves in our different channels, you know, in our different platforms, in the places that we show up, because we can't always assume that because somebody is in your world that they know you. You know, I've actually clicked to invite people into my world, and I've actually gone into other people's worlds based on a frequency that I felt in their essence, or something that was saying yes to aligning with them in some way. But I might not have ever heard of that person. And so when I then go into an introduction of some description, it's really helpful when you actually open up from the place of somebody might not know who I am. So this is a place I'm opening up from here. You might not know who I am. I'm Tash Mitch. I'm the Business Energy Alchemist. I basically work with people to bring their soul calling, their soul mission, their soul vision into the world. And for me, the reason why I've got the language of soul mission, soul vision, soul calling is because I feel that we all are here with a template and with the blueprint that is ours, that is yours alone. And the thing about these blueprints is nobody else can actually live it into the world. Nobody else can express it into the world. Nobody else can bring it to your community, to your family, to the people who find themselves to you. No one can bring it to them but you. And one of the reasons why I love working with people who feel like they have something that's been tugging and pulling at them to express into the world is because, generally speaking, when they find the way to express what's coming forward for them, everyone benefits. Simply because it's coming from something that's very deep, it's coming from something that's very rooted, it's coming from something that is aligned to soul. So this leads me on to the language of soul, because there are all these layers of what the language of soul is, right? There's a layer of soul that is very biblical and religious. There's a layer of soul that is the part of the essence of you that leaves when you depart this plane of existence. My relationship with soul is akin to a relationship with your personal quantum field. And whenever I've spoken to people about this, they've sort of spoken about the Akashic records. I haven't done much with the Akashic records as a library of information and wisdom, but when I've worked with the soul for quite some time, and when I look into the essence of someone's soul, I see it as basically a field of intelligence that holds wisdom of all of their expressions within it. Everything that's happened in their life, from their coming into this plane of existence to way beyond. And often when I tap into the soul template like that, when somebody feels like they have a soul mission and a soul calling, it's normally plugged in somewhere into the soul template. And in that template, there's some level of mastery there. And because we live in a plane of existence where everything is divided into trillions, and so there is this sense of remembering, there's this sense of coming home to, we then have to find ways to trigger the remembering that of this mastery that it already exists. And this is where we'll find ourselves to teachers, to schools, to ways of seeing, to ways of perceiving, to wise people, to people who maybe trod the path before us, all of those kind of things. Generally, when we find ourselves to people like that, it can go either one of two ways. it can go one of multiple ways, but one of two ways is like basically you can disempower yourself and assume that they hold all the wisdom, and therefore you have to curve and carve your template in order to align and fit with theirs, which ultimately works to a degree, but doesn't always work very, very well. And it's akin to trying to, it's becoming an impersonator. Um, Nobody could do Marilyn Monroe the same way Marilyn Monroe did herself. Nobody could do Elvis Presley the same way that he did himself. Nobody could do Prince or Michael Jackson or any multitude of people the way that they did themselves. So all that happens is a cheap imitation, right? But if we could see that the soul has a mastery and the template in there, then we can honor what's coming through us and wanting to be expressed through us as our own unique expression. And then the people that we find ourselves in front of become very much ways of triggering and activating the template and the mastery that's within us. So I am said person. I am the person that a lot of people find themselves in front of when they're in the process of activating, when they're in the process of remembering, when they're in the process of expanding, evolving, quantum leaping, when they're in the process of bringing the conscious mind home to the quantum nature of their existence, basically. And there's a whole multitude of ways that we can reference that. I love to reference that in the field of business, because ultimately for me, if you have a business, if you're an entrepreneur or anything like that, hi Kylan, good to see you. if you're an entrepreneur, like literally you are in university of the soul. And particularly if what you're bringing forward is something personal. I think it gets a little different if you're selling a product that you've, I don't know, bought from a factory and then you're selling it on. But even if you're doing that, there's an element of what led you to that product has got something that's plugged into the soul template. But when it's something really, really personal, so when you're like a coach or a teacher or a mentor or a healer or any kind of catalyst for transformation for other people, then your business literally becomes the soul university. Because any way that you are contracted within your own self in terms of how you connect to your quantum field, you're contracted in your business. And it comes down right into the earth. And that's what I also love about business, is it brings it right into the core and the crux of the root and the rubble and the soil and the messiness sometimes of earth, so that we can actually really root and ground and empower these particular frequencies that we're bringing forward. So when we start to talk about things like sales, when we start to talk about things like marketing, when we start to talk about things like showing up, when we start to talk about things like articulating so people clearly, so people can see what you're saying, when we start to talk about things like really doing the work to shift out the wounded elements so that we could stand in clearer presence for other people, and we can actually be able to delineate what is for us and what's not for us. All of these things, money, massive one, because spiritual beings, particularly if you haven't had a relationship with this particular plane of existence, or maybe other planes of existence that have existences that have operated in a similar fashion, when you come to the point of money, it becomes all sorts of confusing, because we're then sort of putting a go-between in between an energetic exchange. And the go-between isn't always very clear. And so we then have to really learn the mechanics and the energetics and the exchange and the reciprocity that money holds. We also have to be able to learn where money can be sacred and how we can infuse sacred frequencies into the relationship with money, and how we can see the divine intelligence at the center of money. That's a whole learning experience, you know? So for me, that's a way of saying these are all of the things that I extend and I offer and I play with people with and work with people with within the scope of what I do in the Quantum Business Studio and in Soul Coded. So this is an introduction. It's an introduction of what that, you know, what I'm about. And we're going to have another 364 of these as time progresses. This is going to be a very interesting exercise. So whoever's here, thank you so much for being here. And yes, I just leave a message and let me know who you are, that you're here. If you're watching this on the replay, hashtag replay. And this is really opening up for interaction. It's opening up for connection. It's opening up for dialogue, really. So don't be silent. Let me know that you're in my world, and let's play together. All right. So much love to you. Thank you for being here.